Well, I personally think it's unattractive to use your children to promote your work. I think not only from the fact it's in a way exploiting them. Secondly, I can't imagine that Prince Harry is particularly pleased about it. And in the longer run, of course, the children will at some stage grow up.
Well, my dear friends, isn't it fascinating how people are so quick to pass judgment on Harry and Meghan's every move? We've just heard some pretty harsh words claiming that Meghan and Harry are using their children for publicity, that their ventures won't last, and that their future looks bleak. But let us pause for a moment and really think about this. Is that the truth, or is it yet another chapter in the ongoing attempt to undermine their story? The critics would have you believe that showing a fleeting glimpse of Archie or Lilibet a back of the head, a birthday photo or a Christmas card is somehow exploitative. But let's be honest, the Sussexes have been more deliberate about their children's privacy than perhaps any public figures in modern history. They do not subject them to endless photo calls on the palace balcony or force them into the daily grind of royal duty. Instead, Harry and Meghan share what they feel comfortable with on their own terms. That's not exploitation, that's protection. And let's not forget, the very same critics who cry privacy are often the ones who demand more photos, more access, more details about Archie and Lilibet's lives. It's a catch-22 that would drive any parent to distraction. Meghan and Harry can never win with these people. If they share nothing, they're accused of being secretive, aloof, or ungrateful to the public who made them famous. If they share a glimpse, a single photograph on their Christmas card or a brief mention in an interview, they're accused of exploitation. But the truth is the Sussexes are raising their children with more love, balance and dignity than most royal children have ever experienced. Compare this, if you will, to the royal children of previous generations. Think about the young William and Harry themselves, thrust into the spotlight after their mother's death, cameras following their every tear. Think about the pressure, the scrutiny, the loss of childhood innocence. Harry lived that nightmare and he's determined his children never will. That's not using them, that's protecting them with the fierce love of a father who knows exactly what he's shielding them from. Now, another point we keep hearing, that Harry must be uncomfortable in Meghan's world, that somehow Meghan is dragging him along into celebrity culture, that he's lost himself in her shadow. Friends, let's remember who Harry is. This is a man who has walked through minefields alongside his mother's legacy, who served his country bravely in Afghanistan, who built the Invictus Games from nothing into a global movement of hope and healing. This is a man who spoke openly about his mental health struggles when it wasn't fashionable for royals to do so. Harry is not uncomfortable. Harry has chosen this life hand in hand with Meghan because he wanted freedom for himself, for his wife, and for his children. In fact, I would argue that we're seeing the most authentic version of Harry we've ever known. For 30-plus years, he played a role the spare, the party prince, the dutiful brother. But look at him now. When he speaks about veterans' mental health, when he advocates for children in Africa, when he stands beside his wife as she fights for women's rights, this is not a man who's lost himself. This is a man who's finally found himself. The constraints of royal protocol, the suffocating traditions, the endless "we don't do that" responses, those were the chains that bound the real Harry. Meghan didn't drag him anywhere. She helped him unlock the cage. And then we hear the persistent criticism that Meghan keeps trying new ventures and that not everything works out perfectly. Well, welcome to the real world. Any entrepreneur, any innovator, any artist will tell you, failure and reinvention are part of the journey to success. What's remarkable about Meghan is not that some projects don't reach their initial goals, it's her resilience in the face of unprecedented scrutiny. She doesn't give up. She learns, she adapts, and she grows stronger. Whether it's her podcast exploring the complexities of modern womanhood, her lifestyle brand celebrating authenticity, or her advocacy for women and girls around the globe, Meghan proves time and again that she is not defined by setbacks but by how she rises after them. It's also worth noting the staggering double standard here. When William or Kate launch a project that quietly fades away, and believe me, there have been several, the press politely moves on. No headlines about failed ventures or lack of staying power. But when Meghan dares to innovate, to step outside traditional royal charity work and into the worlds of media, business and global advocacy, every critic comes running with their stopwatch, demanding instant, everlasting success. The fact that her work still makes international headlines years after leaving the royal family shows just how much influence and relevance she truly commands. Think about it this way. How many former royals continue to dominate global conversations? How many have built multimedia empires, influenced political discourse, and maintained A-list celebrity status? The answer is virtually none until Meghan. That's not accident or luck. That's the power of authenticity meeting opportunity, of talent meeting determination. Now let's address the persistent myth that their lifestyle is unsustainable, that somehow they'll run out of rabbits to pull out of the hat, that their 15 minutes of fame are ticking down. Really? Harry and Meghan are not performing magicians working with smoke and mirrors. They are accomplished human beings who have systematically established themselves in the worlds of philanthropy, media production, and global influence. Netflix didn't sign them to a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal out of pity or fleeting curiosity. They signed them because the Sussexes bring unique stories, unparalleled access, and a massive global audience that spans continents and generations. Spotify worked with Meghan not because she was a former royal, but because her voice matters, because she asks the hard questions, because she creates conversations that resonate far beyond celebrity gossip. Brands don't line up to collaborate with her out of sympathy, they do it because she represents something powerful. Authenticity in an age of manufactured images, courage in an era of calculated silence, and global appeal that transcends traditional boundaries. This isn't a fleeting moment riding on royal coattails. It's a long-term legacy being built brick by brick, project by project in real time. And what of Harry's trajectory? The claim that his best days are behind him, that he's somehow diminished by stepping away from royal duties, is not just wrong, it's laughable. If anything, Harry has stepped into his most authentic, most impactful self, free from the constraints of the firm, from the endless protocol meetings and the careful scripting of every public statement. He can now advocate for mental health awareness, climate action, and veterans' welfare without being silenced, sidelined, or told that his passion is too political for a royal. The Harry we see today is not a man lost, it is a man finally found. Watch him at an Invictus Games ceremony, see him light up when talking to wounded veterans. Observe the genuine connection he makes with young people struggling with mental health issues. This is not diminishment, this is liberation. This is what happens when someone stops performing a role and starts living their purpose. Remember when they said his marriage would never last? The betting pools, the cruel predictions, the whispered doubts about an American divorcee disrupting royal tradition? Remember when they claimed Meghan would never be accepted, that she was too different, too outspoken, too herself? Time and again, these critics have been proven spectacularly wrong. Harry and Meghan continue to write their own love story together, not apart. Their marriage appears stronger than ever, weathering storms that would have sunk lesser partnerships. Their love is evident in every joint appearance, every mutual defence, every shared laugh. Their family is thriving in ways that palace life never would have allowed. And their influence, far from waning, it remains undeniable. When they speak, the world listens. When they take a stand, conversations shift. When they support a cause, donations pour in. That's not the hallmark of fading relevance, that's the mark of enduring power, the kind that comes from genuine connection rather than inherited titles. But let's address the elephant in the room, the persistent question about whether Meghan's shows, her projects, her various ventures will have real staying power. Well, history has a funny way of humbling the doubters. Remember when people said a radio show about rural life would never last? The Archers is still broadcasting after more than 70 years. Remember when Netflix was just a DVD company that would never compete with traditional studios? Sometimes the most revolutionary ideas start with the most skeptical reception. So why not Meghan? Why not Harry? Why not a couple who continue to inspire millions around the globe? who've proven that you can leave the world's most famous family and not only survive but thrive. Why not a woman who's shown that you can be a duchess, a mother, an entrepreneur and an activist all at once? Perseverance, after all, isn't just in their DNA, it's in their daily choices, their refusal to be silenced, their commitment to living authentically in a world that demands conformity. At the heart of all this noise, all these predictions of doom and failure, is one undeniable truth. Harry and Meghan made a brave, life-changing choice that most people could never imagine making. They walked away from guaranteed wealth, from automatic relevance, from the security of a 1,000-year-old institution. They traded the gilded cage of royalty for the uncertainty of building something entirely their own. That takes courage that most of us will never need to summon. Critics can scoff, tabloids can sneer, anonymous sources can whisper their predictions of imminent collapse, but here's the reality that becomes clearer with each passing year. The Sussexes are happier, freer, and more impactful than they ever were as working royals. Their children are growing up with normal childhoods, their marriage is thriving under their own terms, and their work reaches global audiences that royal engagements could never touch. So when you hear people dismissing Meghan's ventures with a wave of the hand or mocking Harry's choices as some kind of midlife crisis, remember this: they're not talking about failure, they're talking about fear. Fear that Meghan and Harry are succeeding spectacularly on their own terms. Fear that the old order, the one that demanded silence and sacrifice and unquestioning devotion to duty above all else, is crumbling. Fear that the couple once labelled as outsiders, troublemakers and threats to tradition are now setting the tone for what public service can look like in the modern world. And as for Archie and Lilibet, the suggestion that they will someday question their parents' choices, that they'll somehow resent being raised outside the royal bubble, I believe exactly the opposite. I believe they will look back with enormous pride. They will see a mother who fought for her dignity when the world tried to tear her down. A father who chose freedom over comfort, authenticity over approval, love over duty. Parents who shielded them from a hostile press and gave them the precious gift of normal childhoods under the California sun, where they can be children first and public figures never, unless they choose otherwise. That is not exploitation, that is the deepest kind of parental love. That is not using children for publicity, that is protecting them from a system that Harry knows from painful personal experience can devour young lives. So no, my friends, this will not end badly. This is not a cautionary tale waiting for its inevitable conclusion. This is the beginning of a remarkable legacy that will inspire generations. Meghan and Harry are building something real, something lasting, something their children will one day be proud to inherit, not titles or palaces, but the knowledge that their parents chose courage over comfort, authenticity over approval, and love above all else. In the end, history remembers courage, not criticism. It remembers those who dared to be different, not those who demanded conformity. And when the full story of Harry and Meghan is written decades from now, it will not be about scandals or setbacks, about failed ventures or faded relevance. It will be about resilience in the face of unprecedented scrutiny, about love conquering institutional pressure, and about the bold decision to live life authentically when the entire world was watching and judging. That, dear friends, is their true legacy, and it's only just beginning.